Alright guys, so today we are working on the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. This is the woman's Jeep here, and we haven't showed you guys this one yet, but we've got some stuff we got to work on today. So we figured best time to show you guys now. We got to get it ready for hopefully the holiday coming up here. Be able to take it out on the dunes. Old Mike's here.
How are you doing?
Ready to help out. But what happened was the ball joints would bend this, and we started getting a little death wobble and all that. So in this video, we're going to show you a little bit kind of what to look for as far as if you guys are having death wobble issues and all that, to maybe some key points to look at. You know, things that I've looked up and people have pretty much, you know, told you, hey, you should probably check this out, you know, if you're getting, you know, death wobble. So, and like, someone, you know, just telling me is like, there's a difference between having a death wobble and a bump steer. Bump steer, you just keep on driving like it's normal. Death wobble will make you want to never get into your vehicle ever again. So that's what we're got to fix today, because it is no bueno driving this thing right now. So we'd actually just put a new exhaust system from the motor back on it, and now we're going to work on this front end. We ended up getting brand new ball joints, XFR I believe they're called. We're gonna go with Moogs, but they honestly had such bad reviews, and I was surprised because I thought Moogs were actually a pretty good a brand, if I'm saying that correctly. But when I looked up XFR, I mean, they were saying that this stuff is like best bang for your buck, you know. So we're gonna go with that one and see how they work. They actually, and the nice thing about that is the ball joint on the bottom is greasable. Well, a lot of your ball joints, when you do them, you can only grease the top ones and not the bottom. So that was a nice little feature that I liked. And then we have our dual shock steering stabilizer kit. That sounded like a mouthful. But anyways, so we got that. We're going to get that hooked up, which they say that, you know, if your stuff is completely lined in, you will not get death wobble. But if, you know, it's not, then you're going to get death wobble. It doesn't matter if you put a $500, you know, steering stabilizer kit on there. You know, it might help dampen the problem to where you don't notice it maybe, but it's not getting rid of the problem. So as soon as something wears out, you're going to be back to the same point. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Obviously, it wasn't aligned correctly, so we got to check a couple things like caster degree, and then make sure everything's lined up from your front to rear wheel. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. There's a couple other spots that you want to make sure you over tighten, and there's some spots where you want to make sure you don't over tighten. So we're gonna go through all this stuff with you guys and hopefully help you out. So let's get at her. All right, guys. So as you can see, we actually already started to wrap things up a little bit here. We are not totally done, but what we have to do is actually get the wheels on this thing and take it to the exhaust shop. We're trying to fit as much as we can as far as getting this done. So we're gonna get this the wheels buttoned up and all that on it, and we're gonna take it to exhaust shop so they could finish the exhaust that we put on it. I just want them to put a couple extra support brackets and do a little welding in some spots, as long as things aren't too crazy in price. And wanting too much, then I'll just do it myself. But hopefully this will kind of save me some time, so they can do some work on that and I can do some other stuff, and then get it back, and then we're gonna button some stuff up. But to kind of go over a couple of tips and tricks and all that for you guys, so when you are taking this stuff apart, to kind of help you out as far as like when obviously you take this off here to get to your ball joints. You take these two bolts out here, if you can see those, and then you're going to take that off. You're going to want to remove your, you know, your rotor and all that. And then what you do is you have these 12-point bolts back here, making sure that you do use a 13 mil 12-point socket when you take those off, or you will strip them. So normally, I at least know from the last time we did it that had anti-seize on them, so they came out real good for us. So that was not an issue at all. So just make sure when you put them back in, you put a little anti-seize on them, so if you ever have to take them off again, you know, you're good. So once you remove, there's 3 of them. There's one here, and then there's 2 on this other side here. Once you remove those, your wheel bearing will come out. So you're going to have this sensor hooked up to it here with this bracket. So make sure that when you reinstall all this, that this wire is running through here before you actually go to put your spindle back on here. So because if you forget to do that, then you have to go through here and unplug this, which is in such an uncomfortable spot. As you can see, I did forget, and I had to pull part of the fender out. So that was just annoying because that was time wasted on a simple error that I made. And the other thing too is when you do get, as far as your new ball joints pressed in there and all that, is make sure that when you're putting this nut on, that you put this bracket in too, and you don't forget about that, because you don't want to tighten that all the way up and then realize that you have you have to undo it because you didn't put the bracket on. So other thing too is when you're probably going to take this off to make things easier on you, so you could swivel this back and forth, especially if you're working by yourself. We took this off. It's got a nice little Allen spot here. If you happen to not have the correct Allen size, I don't recommend it, but we had to do it to the other side because what happened was we started putting it back together, and halfway the nut started to just seize on there because of the rust. So then we couldn't take it on and we couldn't take it off. So we ended up heating it with a torch and all that to loosen it up, and it came right off. But I'm sorry, the trick actually was putting the jack underneath, and you apply all that pressure to it. And don't lift the vehicle up, but as long as you're putting some pressure on it, normally you don't need to use that Allen in there, and you'll be able to put an impact, and should be able to zap that off, or put it on in our case too. So any other tricks? Not really. Your nut in here was pretty forward. I came right off that impact and all that. Another thing too, when you're putting these in, as far as, make sure you don't need to put grease in here before you put your ball bearings back in. Just if you want to do a little like WD-40 or like a thin oil, that's fine, but there's really no need to do anything. And just make sure that when you put them in, that they are going down in flush, which you might find that being a little bit of a challenge. So just make sure you take your time to get your right adapters and all that, because when you put the adapter on here, it tends to cock you at an angle. So that being the other thing too, when you go to press this one in, depending on what type of setup you have for a ball bearing press, is lower your axle all the way down. So you're going to put your jacks actually on the frame, and then you lower this all the way down as far as your whole axle, and it's going to give you plenty of working room here. See, right now we actually have the jack up a little bit and pressed because we're putting the wheels on, so there's not that much working room. So depending on the size of the tool that you're working with, it could be an issue. So other than that, as far as tips and tricks, right now I don't think I have anything. We're gonna get this buttoned up like I said, and we're gonna be right back in this video, because we gotta still put our steering stabilizer on, our double shock or whatever, and we still need to do caster alignment and see what our angles are at. I said I know our angles are off. I ended up doing some reading, and apparently doing a 4-inch lift just sets us all out of whack. So that's probably part of the reason why we are having issues. So we'll work through it, no big deal. I got some ideas and all that to throw at it. Big thing is you just don't want to pitch too much angle and mess up your drive shaft, but we're going to get into that a little bit later. Alright guys, we'll be right back with hopefully a dialed-in exhaust. Alright guys, we're back from the exhaust shop, and the Jeep went good. They did a good job and all that, getting the exhaust all buttoned up for us and all that. So I'll make sure I do a startup for you guys on that. But for right now, we got our shock here for our stabilizer kit, our dual shock stabilizer kit. We're gonna get that all installed here soon. We're getting all our hardware put together and all that, and we're gonna get at it. And of course, the first bolt I go to work on, I have to use a cutting wheel to get it off. So this Jeep hates me. So I don't know what it is, but I don't know, it just doesn't like me this time. So every bolt, nut, everything has fought me on this thing. So, but that's the name of the game. Just gotta keep working through it and all that, and enjoy the sweet spots and work through the rough spots. So we're gonna get at this thing and hopefully get this shock on there, and then all we got left to do is check our camber and our alignment and all that. So let's get at that. All right, guys, we got it all installed. So I'm gonna help you guys out a little bit here, since always your instructions are pretty vague. So let's get underneath here. So when you're installing, whew, all right, when you're installing the steering stabilizer, you do want to follow directions, because what they tell you to do is first install this bracket here. Get underneath here. There we go. So this is going to go on your drive, or sorry, your diff, and you want to snug it up to your pumpkin here. So you put that bracket on, but don't tighten it. And listen to them, because you will be swiveling that and moving it to where you desire. Next, they're going to have you put on these brackets here. So make sure that your hole here is actually on the inside, and then make sure also that this is going to be actually facing outward. So, and then as far as on top here, you're going to put this bolt through, and what they tell you, see right there, that guy right there, they tell you that, you know, once you put this on, you won't be able to get that bolt through. So when they have you set this up without the stabilizer, you're just putting the bracket on. You put this bracket on, don't tighten it up, but make sure this bolt's in there before you start putting this together. So you won't, I didn't use any washer here. I don't think they even gave you enough washers to complete this task, but that's just me. People might disagree. So you also have this bracket here and all that. And so you get both sides, make sure you're on the inside. So, and then with the shocks, this is that, or stabilizers, whatever you want to call it, the insides here already have the sleeve in it. The outsides don't have the sleeve. I recommend putting that sleeve in before you even go to start putting this stuff on. That way you're not trying to press fit it on here and it's a pain in the butt. Boom, it slides right on. These were the washers I added. I put a washer here on the bottom and on top. You don't have to. In my opinion, the instructions were very unclear of where to put the washers. So, well, I shouldn't say that. I just don't think they supplied me enough. So maybe they shorted me, but not everyone else. But what you're going to want to do then is, since you have this bracket here, you're going to want to put this bracket on with the stabilizers. So you're going to have to juggle a little bit, which is a pain in the butt. And as you can see, that's where I did use the washers here for top and bottom. And I snugged it all up. And then once you get that in, still don't tighten this bracket, but you're going to come over and make sure that you put these on your bolts here, and you're going to snug, you're just going to, you know, snug them up. You're not going to tighten them. Now you could start to pivot everything and how you want it to lay and all that, as far as, you know, making sure it's not going to hit anything. So we've already tested everything that we've done here, and it misses everything. Big thing when you're turning, you want to make sure you turn all the way to the left, that you still have, you know, maybe at least a finger, I'd say, a width on the insides, or I mean on the outsides there, just to make sure that you're not bottoming out and you're not losing any type of steering radius. Because what will happen is that if you are overextending, or as far as ramming this in there every time you steer, you're probably going to end up blowing out your stabilizer. So other than that, I would just listen to what they say, you know, just snug stuff up, don't tighten it, so you'll be able to move it around. It actually works out pretty well. And we're about ready to take this thing for a test drive. But I think that's all I got for you guys. So I appreciate you guys watching. We're going to do another video on adjusting our caster and all that. We kind of ran out of time today, but I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you.